Here we are, about to saddle up on the Indian Sport Chief. Now, I've actually never ridden a Sport Chief. Matter of fact, I've never ridden a Chief. So this is going to be my first real impression coming from a Softail owner. I have a 2018 Softail Heritage 114. Absolutely love that bike. I'll tell you my first impression, that is a hard seat. So see how that feels. Yeah, it is 111 pushing 115. Hopefully these GoPros stick with me here. GoPros do not like the heat. We are going to take this thing home. This will be my first impressions on the Sport Chief. Try to get myself familiar with some controls here. Fire it up. Let's roll. Very different from what I am used to in terms of foot positions, shifter, all that stuff. Obviously, new bike, always going to be a different experience at first. So this bike is, I want to say it's like 40 pounds lighter than my Heritage with a slightly larger motor, so I do anticipate a peppier feel. It certainly feels that way. Definitely feels that way compared to my bike when it was stock. Now that I've got the Dynojet Power Vision on there, it's tuned. I've got the 2-into-1 Reinhardt exhaust on there, wideband O2s, all that. I definitely have a little more oomph coming out of that motor than what I had off the showroom floor. So we'll see how it feels up on the highway, but right off the bat, I'll say riding position, it feels very leaned forward, but of course it's going to because it's Sport Chief. I bought my 2018 Heritage for a specific reason. I wanted a bike that I could kind of do everything with, like an all-around bike for the most part, but something that I could also hop on, go do some touring with it, you know, light touring. A lot of that advice came from Morgan Gales. I mentioned that video quite a bit.
Of all the Softail bikes, this is the one that stood out to me as a great all-rounder.
But I love Morgan Gales. He's an awesome guy. I had a chance to meet him at a previous press event, which was pretty cool. But his opinion of that bike, I very much agreed with, about it being a great all-around touring bike. And at the time, I honestly wasn't even looking at Indians. I just was very much dead set on buying a Harley, and that's exactly what I did. It's interesting now to be able to come out here and start comparing, contrasting some other bikes, other offerings. So now I'm looking at this bike, the Sport Chief, and thinking, okay, now if I didn't want to do some light touring, would this be a better option for kind of like an all-around town bike? I was a little bit conflicted on that front fairing. One thing I have learned with anything in general, especially automotive, motorcycle design, is don't die on that hill right away, because things certainly can't grow on you. It was very much like that for the Indian Pursuit for me. It took me a little bit of time to get used to that, and now I actually am quite fond of that fairing, just as much as I am the Road Glide. Let's hop over here. The fairing here actually does a good job. The wind is, let's see, right here. You really want to have either all of the wind hitting your helmet or none of the wind. You don't want it to be like right up here, because that's where you start getting kind of like a bobblehead thing, where you don't have anything pressure-wise on the majority of your helmet, but you're just getting kind of tapped at the top of the head with wind the entire time. This does a very good job of keeping all the wind off of my body, and it is hitting basically right at the visor for me. I am 6 foot, 200 pounds, and I will say this is actually a very pleasurable ride at 85 miles an hour. Very much enjoyable. So I'd be curious to know how this would feel for a long ride. I will go out and do a bit longer of a journey when it's not 112 degrees, geez, and 112 degrees outside. These kinds of temperatures, they kind of suck the life out of you. As your body is sweating, it's just basically drying immediately. So for those of you out there riding these temperatures, stay hydrated, and it's something you got to really be careful of. So back to the Sport Chief. Now, more importantly, I want to talk about Indian motorcycles and where they're at currently in the market. When I had the Indian Pursuit that I took up to Boulder from Phoenix here, it was a great ride, fantastic time, and I started thinking to myself, on those many hours of riding, why do we not see more Indian motorcycles on YouTube? And I'm not talking about press bikes, I'm talking about bikes that people own that they ride on the daily. This is something I've been thinking about. We've got all these YouTubers, and I watch them just as much as you guys do, ride these Indian motorcycles and have absolutely nothing but great things to say about them. However, you then look at the bikes that they personally own, and it is Harley-Davidson. So I started thinking about this. Now, I'm also one of those. I have a 2018 Harley-Davidson Heritage 114, so if you want to call me a hypocrite, you can go right at it. But my journey of buying a motorcycle, the first time I bought a bike was in 2018, and I bought my Harley. The reason why I did that is because the only person I knew that ever rode motorcycles personally was my uncle, and he always rode Harleys. So when it was time for me to buy a bike, I went straight to the Harley dealership. Never really even took a look at anything Indian had to offer. And it wasn't until I got into this YouTube space a little bit further that I started to really be able to take another look at the competition. And boy, oh boy, is the competition absolutely amazing. And I'm not saying this because I have a press bike today from Indian. I'm saying this because I genuinely mean it. And I'm not here to throw shade on anybody because, again, I don't think anything is out of ill intent. I'm talking YouTubers who actually put their own money down and buy bikes. A lot of the YouTubers end up buying Harley-Davidsons, if you're talking about people who kind of cover cruiser type bikes. And I think the reason for that is less that Harley-Davidson is a better brand and more that people are making, whether it's conscious or subconscious purchasing decisions, that they are putting their money on a motorcycle that is going to naturally have more eyeballs, and that is Harley-Davidson. What sucks about that, and I genuinely mean that, is that I have ridden enough Indian motorcycles now to know that the product they have is very much worthy of my dollar, your dollar, any other YouTuber's dollar. But the state of YouTube, especially now, is that you need to keep with niches. People feel that way, at least I don't do it, but people stick with niches. They stick with what has the larger audience. They, however, get on these Indians and talk about how great they are because they're not lying. They are fantastic motorcycles. I think that Indian in 2023 is up against not only market perception of building their brand, but also they're against something that businesses haven't really had to face up until modern times. They also are now trying to do an algorithm shift to where there's enough audience that will feed that algorithm to make content creators like myself feel as if putting their money into that brand isn't going to be a bad business decision for them on the social media side. So I'm obviously not talking about like Danny Hayes, $1 Million Bogan, who lives, sleeps, eats, breathes Harley-Davidson as a brand, or Matt Laidlaw, who's a Harley-Davidson dealership. Obviously that content is what it is because those people are living the brand of Harley-Davidson. Those are not the content creators that I'm talking about, but I am talking about the fact that I have had plenty of conversations with other content creators around Indian motorcycles, and the conversation is like, man, Indian really has some great bikes. And those are the people that still are riding Harley-Davidson. And this is not nearly a shot at any of these YouTubers, because I appreciate where they are all coming from, not only in terms of their genuine content creation that they're putting out there. There is nothing disingenuous about it at all, but there is absolutely a business behind it. Most of them probably know that. Some of them might try to kind of pull the wool over their own eyes to not, really, I guess, put much thought into it, or some of them maybe genuinely just don't put much thought into it. It's just a thing that I wanted to talk about, because I think that Indian is unfairly battling an algorithm world now that did not exist 20 years ago in the same landscape. I think that if they dropped these bikes the way that they have now with this execution, even a decade ago, it wouldn't have been that hard. But currently, the algorithm thing is very real, and companies are now battling that, which kind of sucks, because the question then becomes, how do you actually get people to organically ride the brand because it's great, so that they're producing that good quality content that slowly starts to nibble away at that the current state of the algorithm, which is a very real thing, So it's a very interesting world now, and the one thing, you know, if I can add any color to this conversation, there's a vibe that I get from the people of Indian motorcycles, and it's everybody I have pretty much been exposed to in this brand, that they are what I think motorcycle mentality should be. They really appreciate people calling it as they see it. They're not trying to control a narrative to a level that makes it such a whitewashed garbage content creation process for creators, but it becomes a beautiful thing to watch as a consumer of YouTube. I love watching other creators hop on Indians, compare them to their Harleys, sing their praises, because I know it's genuine. These bikes are that good, and I think the Sport Chief is right there with them. So very excited to see how Indian basically tackles this market shift that they're actively in, and I think they're doing a fantastic job. But the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time, and man, they are really taking that one bite at a time. I think that Indian is just overall doing a really good job of working on the market the right way and putting out the products that speak for themselves. In my opinion, the Indian now is the cool thing because it is different. So the bike is worthy of your dollars, and it's not what everybody else has that's on the road. It makes you different, it makes you unique. It is a talking point. People at gas stations are constantly asking, like, wow, what is that? That's pretty cool. Like, it's different enough that it captures the eyeballs of an awful lot of people, and it is a good feeling. It's also a really good feeling when you do pass another Indian on the road. You kind of throw it out, you know, the fingers, because it's kind of like, hey, like another one of us, and it makes it just, again, that much more like of a special kind of thing, and I genuinely appreciate that. So don't catch the vibe like, oh, the Indian rider is going to be the redheaded stepchild, because it is not that whatsoever. So with that being said, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. If this is your first time tuning in, please hit that subscribe button down below. Remember, likes go a long way to help support the channel. I will see you guys next time. Now there it is. And now that's freaking awesome. Holy sh... Alright, let's slow that down.